Welcome to EdTech Speaks, a podcast bringing guests together to share their expertise and advice on navigating business and education in a technology-driven world. From entrepreneurs to vendors, higher education to corporate leaders, we'll uncover their perspective regarding the latest trends and technologies impacting your career or business. Our podcast is made possible by Downing EdTech Consulting, where people and technology connect. Hosted by Cher Downing, an experienced executive spanning a higher education and corporate career with specific focus on the EdTech industry. Dr. Downing is also an international and national presenter, author, and regular media contributor. Now here is your host, EdTech strategist, Dr. Cher Downing.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to EdTech Speaks, a podcast where we bring guests to share their expertise and advice on navigating through business and education in a technology-driven world. As you know, our goal is to provide you with options for products, services, and knowledge that can help benefit you and your business. I'm your host, Cher Downing, and I want to introduce today's guest, Josh Chernikoff. Hi, Josh. How are you today?
How you doing? Nice to meet you. Don't cut this, but it's Chernikoff, but that's okay. I've heard worse. I do not need to edit that out. I've heard people refer to me as much worse and butcher my name, so we're all good.
We'll leave it there then.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I know that you're with Cascade Communications, and I'm excited for our listeners to hear about this because we really look for things that are innovative, that are really disruptors in the business. And I think you're definitely looking at a disruption space here. So I want to start off, though, and have people hear your background so they understand how you came on this trail to get to this point, because I think it's fascinating. And they're really going to start to see how all of your talent has pooled into this focus.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say disruptor, is a good adjective for what I've done in the past, because I had to, because I didn't enter education with the, classically trained with a degree in education. My background is in print and broadcast journalism. I went to American University, undergrad, print journalism. Graduate school, I went to Northwestern, got a master's in broadcast. Out of school, I did 2 years of on-air sports broadcasting, and then a quick stop in Philadelphia, and then went to work for the then Washington Redskins. I was part of the team that, when there was a lot of the stuff going on that you're hearing about, I certainly wasn't a part of it, didn't know too much about it. But what I did feel was that the situation was toxic and I didn't want to be a part of it. So one of my outlets was tutoring. And the reason I was a good tutor is because I had a lot of tutors growing up. I was not the best student. So started doing some tutoring and, got some traction, started working with a couple different students. I remember working with this one student. He was in middle school and we got to Venn diagrams. And I said, I am out. We have reached the height of my math understanding because I'm not a math person. Hired another tutor. Her name was Michelle Silva. She was fantastic. She was with me basically until I sold the company 10 years later. But realized that if you had willing families and phenomenal tutors and you put them together, you'd be good. In April of 2008, I got our team and our company on the NBC affiliate in Washington, D.C. Again, kind of using my communication skills, wrote a really good story, got it on, and the company took off from there. And so we were a boutique in-home tutoring company in the Washington area for 10 years, always had about 200 families, about 100 tutors. And about 3 years in, as the company is just humming along, a PTA mom came to me and said, I want to do a homework club at our school. And I thought, great. And I would do it for free, because to me, it was an opportunity for our tutors to get more work and for the company to get exposure. And I remember talking to this mom, and I don't exactly remember her name right now, but I remember talking to this mom and she said, we will get you registrations. We will get you paid. We will make your flyers. We will get you rooms. I'm like, what do I have to do at this point, And basically she's like, just show up, please just be safe and show up. And I talked to her. So I think my journalism side kicked in, and I said, why are you doing all this? And she said, well, when it comes to enrichment, not aftercare, when it comes to enrichment after school, this has to be essentially run by PTAs, and mostly it was PTA moms,
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, so maybe there's a business here. So I went to a friend of mine who was a middle school principal, super cool dude in Bethesda, Maryland. I said, I think I can run your after school program. And the words had not come out of my mouth. And he was like, it's all yours. I should have thought about that, but I didn't. So I took it, and we set up an after school program for his middle schoolers, and one school led to 3, led to 8. At that point, we kind of got out of Montgomery County, Maryland. We were in Fairfax and DC. Then we got to 15, and we're moving to New Jersey, Connecticut, New York. Company grew from an enrichment company to summer camp and aftercare. I brought on a COO, Michael Fay, who had been with a lot of big companies, and he helped us really kind of get in that aftercare space. We had 82 schools in 6 states. In February of 2020, we had a letter of intent signed. That letter of intent was rescinded around March 13th of 2020 as the world was ending.
Yep.
My business partners decided this wasn't for them anymore. And they said, if you want out, get out. If not, this is yours. I said, okay. So Michael and I teamed up and brought the business back to where we could over the pandemic, and then looked at each other and said, what are we doing now? And I said, I'm not so interested in doing the in-person stuff. I'm going to be doing some traveling. I want to spend some time in Mexico. And he said, cool, I want it. And so we made a deal that worked for both of us. And he now owns Flex, and he and I'm still the largest investor in Flex. I still do the business development for Flex Academies. He changed the name to Flex. And we're involved in some other franchise agreements for Overtime Athletics in New Jersey and DC. And so I started Cascade. I kind of looked and said, what did I do best? What did I enjoy most when I was building my 2 businesses before I sold them? And it was the content, and it was the relationship building. So maybe a little bit, although this isn't in my character, I'm rewriting history a little bit or patting myself on the back, which I'm not very good at as an entrepreneur. But I think I was doing community building and kind of delivering content that was valuable to potential clients before I got anything from them, long before other people were doing it. And we're just doing that now for our clients in the education space. Could be EdTech, could be, in person. Our goal is to help make sure their businesses are well developed, to make sure their branding and their messaging is good, is professional, and then that their content is super solid, so that they are building relationships with potential stakeholders, superintendents, principals, PTAs, parents, whoever it is, so that they can grow their revenue and their impact.
So for our listeners, a couple things to take out of that. One is you can always mash all of your talent and all of your skill sets and all the things that you did into what's next. We talk about this a lot, and I think sometimes people forget. They assume, well, you did this great thing in education. You must have a master's, a doctorate in education. You're right down this linear path. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies when we are working in the very field that we're trained in, because we don't have that critical eye. We're just trained to look at things in a certain way. I think when you come from the outside and look at it, as you've done, it's such a different dynamic because you recognize things that we tend to gloss over. We've gotten used to. And I love the story of how it came to fruition because it's so true. You could probably ask any principal in the nation, hey, can we take over your after school program? Right. They would jump at it because we know schools are notoriously underfunded, understaffed. overworked. Their numbers are growing and changing. The issues of problems are growing and changing. We just realized how awful our workforce layout was.
Right.
People aren't going back to work because they realize they could be home with their children. They could actually have dinner with them, pick them up after school, all of these things they were missing out on before. And now they want to figure out how to be able to do that. So I think, for our listeners, it's always important that they realize that these ideas that come to fruition often come because of the experience we've had, the observation we've made, but also we start to channel in our expertise and how do we make this work. So I love the fact that you've managed to hang on to that broadcasting, branding, visualization space, and now combine that with the education piece of it. I think that is so valuable.
Thank you. I mean, if you had only been around when I was 13, 14, 15, and my parents couldn't get me to study, and could have told them that, hey, it's going to be all good because he's going to use the fact that he was a bad student and loved being out of school to build a career, that would have been much more helpful. To saved us some tears and some arguments. But we're here now, and my mom loves to listen to these things, so she'll hear it just a few years later.
Oh, it's fabulous. So talk to me a little bit about the type of content that you do and what are some of the strategy steps that you go through for utilizing this? Because I think there is still in the K through 12 space a disconnect between what they really need in external help and what they perceive to purchase. So I think a lot of times schools get really dazzled by technology. They get really dazzled by apps, by things that they can bring into the classroom and show that there's innovation going on. Mm-hmm. But they really haven't invested in something. It's more of a short term, we're going to buy something, we're going to see how it goes. If it doesn't work, we move on. Your product is more of an investment because you're looking at a much more depth of quality and depth of content that's going to stand the more test of time. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, first of all of our contracts are at least 6 months and no shorter, because we need to build a relationship together so that we can have you start building long-term relationships with, school districts or superintendents or principals or PTAs or parents. Our content is absolutely rooted in journalism. So to, our earlier discussion, there is no fake news that goes on. Everything is well researched and put together. Whether we are sending emails, potentially on behalf of a client, everything is well written. If we are doing what I call relationship roundtables, not webinars, these are not webinars. We can talk more about why they're not webinars, but they are professionally done. I think at the end of the day, what principals all the way down, superintendents down the line are looking for is to see your passion. And so I would recommend anybody who's writing to a stakeholder is to start with your passion, not your product. And then people will feel that. And if you talk about your passion, as opposed to talking about yourself or your product, especially in that first outreach, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's email, whether it's DMing them on Twitter to get to know them, start with your two passions. One is your what your product is, but also that, you're just eager to get to know people. And if that's not your passion, you got to potentially a bigger problem. But you got to want to get to know folks first and build relationships. One of the largest sales that we ever had in my second company in Flex, it took 4 years. It took 4 years. It's still the largest sale and it's still the largest school that we work with, but it was a long 4 years, but it was really worth the wait. So in that time, I was continuing to try and support that community. I was continuing to try and help that PTA president if they needed something and I knew wasn't going to affect my bottom line positively, but it would positively affect the relationship. I did it, So I think at the outset, the first thing that people who are listening should do is just be passionate, about education and helping others, and the product will thrive after that.
I hope if listeners get nothing else from our conversation today, they focus in on that. Oftentimes I will have people tell me that I am too generous with my information. I could be monetizing it. I could be doing other things with it. And to me, it's exactly what you're saying. It's about sharing that knowledge. It's about helping someone. Good things always come out of it in the long run, but it's an investment. You have to invest in other people. You have to invest in what they're believing in and what you are bringing to the table and what you're believing in. So for listeners, this is key for any business, is having those relationships. And I love that you shared the timeline, because oftentimes when I talk with startups, they assume that, well, let's see, today's August 23rd. So we ought to be making money by December 1st. We ought to have 5-10 clients on the line, because our product is so great. We know everyone's going to jump on it. And I remind them that, this is a slow and steady process. And in education, for years, the joke has always been it's 12 to 18 months to make a decision, because there are lots of things to go through, lots of people to talk through, lots of policies in place. Even something as simple as, you get a contract, you're really excited, and you send it to purchasing, and they send it back because they have 3 questions on something, or they don't like the way this is written, or could you get a copy of this? I've sent contracts, and then I call over and I'm like, why is this not moving?
Right.
And someone will say, oh, that person's gone on vacation for 2 weeks. I'm like, so nobody else deals with this when they're gone? Oh, no, it's in their inbox. Okay, great. So, time is just part of the relationship process. And when you don't recognize that, and you're, calling them every week saying, where are you at? Where are you at? Are you going to sign? Are you going to sign? Are you going to sign? They get really irritated. And pretty soon they're like, you know what? This isn't worth it. When you take that approach you talked about, that's where people go, okay, they really care about us. There's value here.
Right. It's patience and it's persistence, and it's equal parts. And you said 12 to 18 months. And in my case, it was 12 to 18 to 48 months.
Yep.
But it was worth those 48 months. I was doing that quick math in my head. I think I did it right. It was worth those 48 months to land that large client. And so when we work with the companies that we work with in the education space, we kind of do 3 checks, before we start. First of all, if you are ready, for us, let's take a look at your mission and your vision and your OKRs. We want to make sure that you've got that aligned. Once we have that health check, we look at their branding. And the reason I think that's important is because since day one, when I started my tutoring company in October of 2007, I've always thought it was odd that companies in the kids space would use things like Comic Sans or balloons or streamers or something like that. I'm like, we are in the professional space. So I remember my first website was designed by a company that designed yoga websites. So it was sleek, it was cutting edge, it was modern. So we look at that with our companies, and we have a design team that we have in-house and content teams that can rewrite websites, because by the time we get to a lot of companies, they're cash flowing, they're in the millions, but they're still working off that first website that the founder made on WordPress, and the logo is updated, and 90% of what's on that website, they don't do, because they finally found their niche. And so let's take that 10% and let's make a big website based on what you do well. Now that's health check number 2. As we get into the third part, it's cool. We've passed those 2 hurdles, so to speak, and now we're ready to work together. And let's make sure that we turn you into the thought leader that you are in the space. And we try and do it, like I said, kind of in 3 different ways. Ground attack is using email, but doing it in a very safe and smart way, so that you're not clogging inboxes. Roundtables, AAK webinars, so that you are out there speaking and really delivering a message that connects to your mission and your vision and your website. And finally, you got to be on social, and that's a tough thing for somebody who's CEO to manage, and we manage it for them. But, it's not being on social and being a part of the potential cesspool that is Twitter or something like that. There's a lot of great stuff on Twitter, and clearly there's a lot of great conversations on LinkedIn. And it's just contributing in a genuine but very direct way to these conversations. So you do those three things, you're going to have success. It might take 12 to 18 to 48 months, but you got to play a long game if you're going to be around for a long time.
So talk to us a little more about this roundtable webinars, because this is a space that, we have beat the webinar to death. And certainly over the last 2 years, we have just, it is in the ground.
Yeah.
So what do you guys do that makes it different?
Yeah, I'm going to say genuinely, thank you for asking me that question. Yeah, we did not set that up for you to ask me this at all. This is for real, for real. So I think the webinar, I agree, has been beat to death. And what we have done as a team is we've kind of flipped it on its head. So we have created these roundtables, which are actual discussions. And for our clients, they're an opportunity to get on stage with people that they would want to be their clients. And we produce made for TV events, just like I did in Harrisonburg, Virginia at WHSV when I was getting out of, my master's. We are producing live made for TV events with dissolves, and we're moving people around. I mean, I couldn't have imagined this back then because there was a whole control room for this, but we have a team that is our digital media team, and I am constantly pushing them to innovate. So one of our latest innovations is we have essentially created what you would call a green room. We call it an orange room because Cascade, we like the color orange, but it's an opportunity for our clients who are trying to reach major stakeholders to kind of talk with the panelists before and after the show. Because that's kind of where the real magic happens in terms of, revenue and getting to know each other. And so these roundtables then become an opportunity for our clients to get to know the panelists, to get to know what they want in their school district or out of a potential product they're going to leverage. And all of this may sound very easy because I had somebody, who ended up buying from us say, well, I can do this myself. I'm like, go for it. But it's going to look like every other webinar that has ever been done. And I promise you that these are not. I'm able to leverage my broadcast skills. I'm kind of the play-by-play person. We bring on the CEO, most likely, of that company who becomes the color. And then we have 2 to 3 stakeholders that they want to interview and get to know. So if we do a series of 6, you're looking at 18 to 20 very large potential clients walking through your door for this roundtable. So I don't want to give all of our magic sauce away, but anybody out there can try and go and replicate this. But it's just the fact that I kind of know what I'm doing here on the broadcast side. We have a phenomenal team and we have an engine. We're doing these roundtables day in and day out. Lots of them aren't being seen because some of them are actually very closed off because we want that kind of personal feel. So yeah, go try to replicate it, but I don't think you're going to do as good a job as my team.
But the value in this is in essence one-stop shopping. We go to Target, we go to CVS, we go to various stores because everything's right there. We don't want to go to specialty stores unless it's something in particular that we're wanting to look for. We've become big box with Costco and Sam's Club and those kind of warehouse distributions, even Amazon, because I can grab everything from them. As crazy as it is, they will carry it somewhere. But part of that is comparison shopping. Part of that is mentally prepared to look for whatever I'm looking for. This is the piece I think people forget. When people are looking for vendors, when people are looking for product, when people are looking for services, when you one-off them here and there, their mind isn't focused on that. That's like someone walking in and just suddenly saying to you, what do you want for lunch? We're putting it in order. What do? You stammer, you're thinking through, you're like, I don't know, get me what I had last time. Right. There's no thought to it. There's no commitment to it. What you've done is said, okay, here it is. Here is everyone. Your mindset needs to be, this is your golden opportunity. Here's the golden ticket to see everybody you want to see. And for the other side, here's a golden opportunity to really test the waters. See what you want to do. See how you can do it better. Learn from every time you do this. And the piece that's just really above and beyond is the relationship in the middle that, you suddenly have all this connectivity in this network that you didn't realize you were even going to get out of it.
Yeah. There's no losing that.
No, it's a brilliant piece of work. But I can tell by talking with you that it's also because your passion, your talent, your experience is being poured into it. And so the product coming out of it isn't just hey, we're going to gather everybody around and we'll buy you lunch and send you home.
No, that's
you're
true.
Putting focus.
I think you make a good point. Certainly, I agree with you. I think in my third business, when we started the tutoring business, and that was a lot of I. I was willing to tutor anything, because we just needed families. When the enrichment company came along, it became a little more we. But I was also still willing to try anything. Was it enrichment for adults or senior citizens? I didn't care, right? Now, in this business, we're very particular about what we do and who we work with. And so one-stop shop, yes, when it comes to content and relationship building, that's what we are. That's our tagline. It took us months to get there. We've done our own work that we ask others to do. So we are content and relationship experts in the education space. So one-stop shop. But I'm also pretty proud is that we are focused on education, and we've had other companies come and say, hey, can you help? We're in the e-waste business or, whatever it is. But no, we're very happy in education. It's what we know most and best and enjoy. So, I almost feel like we're that one-stop shop though on the corner, and you're, I had somebody that I reached out to because I thought they'd be a nice fit for us. And the CEO, she said, great, I'm interested. Am I going to talk to you or somebody on your team? And I'm like, no. Talking to me. Like, I found you. I'm really interested. I mean, I have a team and we're all going to work together, but no, this is me. I think we can do really great things. So one-stop shop, yes, but we're still like that. We're kind of boutique-y, which I like.
And I think that is another piece of value. So oftentimes we get, the third tier salesperson. We get, heaven forbid, the person who just came out of 3 months worth of orientation, who, can't answer anything. I mean, my experience over the years, and particularly because, my career came up as technology really got introduced and really took off, is salespeople would come in and, this product does everything, washes dishes, cleans your floors, teaches your classroom, does everything. And then, you'd go to implement it and you're like, hey, it's not doing this. And you'd call their engineers and they're like, yeah, it doesn't do that. Your salesperson told us it did this. They're like, yeah, they were wrong. I can't tell you how many times I've had that conversation personally and how many times, I've heard people say that when they say, well, we're looking for something new, but, we're really worried because last thing we bought, they told us it was going to do all this stuff and it didn't do it. That's the piece that's always continuously been missing, that disconnect between the people that are selling the product and really understanding and passionate about the product, but also knowing when to say, hey, let's pull in another team member because I can't truly answer that. I really don't know. And you've figured out that gap is the very thing that's going to make or break the product.
All right. Well, first of all, let me apologize on behalf of myself 10 years ago and all other salespeople who stretch the truth. Say that, when we're sitting in front of you in an administrative office, that our product will do that. Michael Fay is the one, again, my sparring partner, who was my COO, taught me, like, dude, you can't sell things that we don't do. Set them up, And I was like, okay, I don't quite understand why, but okay, I'll follow that. So 43-year-old Josh, 3 businesses later, is sticking to exactly what we know how to do and want to do and can do, by the way. So we're not selling things that don't exactly exist. So I apologize again on behalf of myself 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier, and others who say that, their product in the education space can wash the floors when in fact it can't.
Well, and I will tell you that, education is just as guilty, because oftentimes you come in with a product and, it's V3, it's ready to go, plug and play.
Yeah.
And you kind of haven't mentioned that, I don't know, you haven't updated for 10 years.
Right.
You're still running on V1 version, you
Right.
didn't want to buy the extra licenses. And so, they're assuming, because on the outset, they see that you do things that, well, clearly, you're up, you're going, and then they get in and they're like, oh, wow, like, I haven't seen a machine like this in 10 years. And, so it's equal on both sides, I think. I think we know what we want, but we're not always prepared for it. And you on your side know what we need based on looking and doing that analysis. But you don't always get told the whole truth that we're not there yet. We should be, but we're not.
Actually, I'm going to talk to Michael about that, because that's a good point. Can't tell you how many times we would work with PTAs or principals or school districts, and we would, kick off a contract and get going, and they would say, this doesn't wash the floors.
Yeah.
And you would say, no. And they said, well, I just assumed it did. We're going to need it to.
Yeah.
Well, this is a platform that registers kids for after school. Well, it's for this to work, and wow, we need to start in 2 weeks. It's going to have to wash the floors. They're like, okay, we'll make that happen. And as entrepreneurs, we make it happen one way or another. And it's like live TV. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it ends up happening. But yeah, that's a good point. On the other side, I did have a lot of instances where some curveballs were thrown my way, even when I did stick to the script.
And I think that's why now, where you're, really looking at what's their vision, what's their mission, you're looking through that whole health check is so valuable, because oftentimes too, the people that you meet with, and this, are in the C-suite. They really don't know what's going on in the middle sector. They really don't either understand, they don't have a background in it, and they shouldn't. They have people that take care of that. But it's hard for them to say, oh, we're plug and play, this will work perfectly for us. And then find out when they go back and talk to their staff that they're like, yeah, that's not going to work. Right. And here's all the reasons why. I mean, I think in both sectors, we've always been guilty of not being prepared enough when we go to the table. Mm-hmm. You're taking that a step further and saying, okay, let's make sure everybody's prepared. Now we can have a real honest conversation. Now we really know what we're up against. Now we really know what we're looking for. That's something that we've not seen in the industry to this point.
Yeah, we're not throwing shit up against a wall and seeing if it sticks, and excuse my language, we're not allowed to use that, but it's the truth. I mean, we are pressing our clients to make sure that their buyer personas are nailed down, because we have writers who are going to be very concise and clear about what your product does. And we are going to have people who respond, whether it's they want to be a part of your roundtable or they get an email that actually interests them and they book on your calendar. They are going to expect that your product does what it says it does, and you are that passionate person. And if not, we're going to have a problem. And I've seen it, and so when I started the company, there were some CEOs that we worked with who hadn't necessarily figured out what their value proposition was. So that set us back. And then even when we got out there, they still weren't necessarily really, really ready to be talking to principals, to be talking to superintendents. Mm-hmm. And I can absolutely sympathize with that. I can remember in Flex, my enrichment company, when I would walk in to talk to a PTA, these are PTA moms who were just ready to beat me up. Like they were there to beat me up. And I finally figured that out. They had 2 questions they wanted answered right out of the gate. Okay. What are you going to do to our loyal providers who have been here for years? And what's going to happen to the pricing? And so what I would do is answer those 2 questions first. And it wasn't until I figured that out, and especially the pricing question, that I really started having more productive and faster conversations in a good way. And if you are still trying to figure those things out, we're probably not the best fit at the moment. You know, you should go through the stuff that I went through in those lounges where I was meeting with the PTAs to get to the point where I had really figured it out. And once you figured that out, then let's start, really going out there and putting your product out there for the group that you want to reach, whether it is PTAs, who are a phenomenal group to work with, whether it's principals or whether it's superintendents, or whether you want other partnerships with other companies. You've got a platform that, other companies can use, but you kind of got to figure that part out first, or you're going to struggle and stumble when those people book on your calendar.
And I think that is so true, because I think back to the times of sitting through a whole presentation, and it's all about the bells and whistles and how fabulous it is. And sadly, everyone gets excited. It's like, hey, yeah, we want this. We want this. And then we get to pricing. And, I know the person next to me knows, the comptroller certainly knows there is no way that pricing is going into our budget this year. So now we've disappointed everybody, so the next time we invite them to see something, they're like, I'm not getting excited because we're probably not going to buy it anyway. It's not a great way to do business, but it's always the way we've done business. There's a joke in higher ed that somewhere on a sidewalk at every school, it says, but we've always done it this way. Universities are notorious for this. And K through 12, a little bit also, but they're more so because of funding. If they aren't getting the right kind of funding, or they can't plan ahead, it's really hard for them to adopt things. But nonetheless, everyone comes barreling in with, here's the latest, greatest bells and whistles, and you can't live without this, and you're going to love it. Even a free product, you're going to love it. We're just going to give it to you. Oh, but you've got to have this in place and this in place and this in place. And well, there's another $10,000 so we can have our free product. Right. It's still about money. And you're absolutely right. If there's already relationships in there, people worry about, how are we going to, shift our focus? How are we going to get rid of something and pick up something else? And I think that's the beauty of this, is really getting people past what I call their pitch deck. So many startups, they learn how to do their pitch deck. They learn how to present their pitch deck. And then every meeting they go to, they want to be like Shark Tank. They think they're selling this. And I'm like, no. This is about building that relationship. This is about getting to know them and letting them pull people in. They want another meeting to pull 3 more people in. Have the next meeting. Right. Well, we thought we'd sign today. Really? Oh. What gave you that idea? Because we're impatient. We think these things happen quickly, and we think schools pay quickly. We think schools have checkbooks lying around that they write these out. And I'm like, no. There's this wonderful process called a purchase order that if you survive and live through the purchase order process, you will see money on the other side. You've changed all that.
Yeah, it is establishing the shared passion first, and once you can do that, then you can go anywhere, but you got to do that first. And I think you're right. It is almost like a prolonged Shark Tank, because there are all these hurdles. So it's the first meeting, and then it's probably the second or the third meeting. And then you're going to the comptroller, and that is a whole nother season of Shark Tank you've got to get through. And then you've got to get, buy-in from, the faculty potentially, and then the parents. And then, by the way, let's not forget, this is for the students, so they have to like it. So it's just a long Shark Tank. I'm always baffled when I start, going with companies and we go through their pitch deck and they read it. That part I never do. I can read. I'm not an amazing prolific reader, but I can read. Talk to me. You want to give me some stats on a page, fine, to kind of back up what you're saying, but just talk to me about what you do. And when you get them off the script, two things can happen. They can become themselves and super passionate, or maybe they were just about the words on a page. And that's not who you want to be a partner with.
Exactly. So tell me, Josh, who do you look for clients, and how do they reach out to you and get the process started?
Honestly, it's, we are working with companies who are in-person education businesses. Obviously, my expertise being in tutoring and the aftercare space, we've got a lot of clients there, but also just EdTech companies as well. It's all about, at the end of the day, telling a great story, and a true one as well. That helps. One of my mentors, Joseph Olszewski, always told me, this has the benefit of being true. So everything that we say has the benefit of being true as well, and is important. And people can find me at our website, cascadego.co. I'm on LinkedIn pretty much 20 hours out of the day, talking to people and contributing to what other people are saying and vice versa. So LinkedIn is a great place to find me. Or they can email me at josh@cascadego.co, CASCADE go.co. And I'm really quick to respond. And that would be another thing that for your audience, I was always surprised in the tutoring business, or when I heard from PTAs that wanted our business flex to come in, they would say, wow, you respond really quickly. I'm like, well, yeah, because you're probably sending out 19 emails to other tutoring companies or enrichment companies. And I want to be the first, and I want to show you kind of the service you're going to get from us. So if people reach out to me, I will be extremely quick, and they should also do the same.
I think that is such great advice. And it is something, because you do get inundated all day long with products and services from people. But more importantly, I always think, well, maybe they didn't get it, or they're handing it off to someone, and this is really the person I want to start talking with. I'm fine with them handing me off after the initial conversation. Right. But, if it's a week later and then someone else reaches out to me, I'm like, not really so excited about it now. So right. Excellent advice for that. I'm so glad that you joined me today. You and I could talk forever, I think, about this stuff. But I think, our listeners, it's a really great opportunity to learn from many of the lessons that Josh talked about and shared with us today. But I think also the bigger issue is that if you're an EdTech company and you're in this space, you need to get on Josh's calendar. You need to start looking at the value of what he can bring for you. Because for many of the startups, they have a great product, but they don't get out of the gate. And they don't get out of the gate because they don't understand how to get out. You definitely have built a system and a process that does that and gets them with the right people. Yeah,
thank you. And, it'd be great to have you on. I have a show called Breaking the Grade. And I think it'd be great to have you on as well. And you talk about the lessons that I've learned. I have bumps and bruises all over my body from the lessons that I've learned. But I'm happy to share them, whether or not we end up working together. Anybody in the education space, entrepreneur, CEO, whatever it is, it's a tough position. So if I can be of help, again, whether or not we work together, let's connect and help each other out however we can.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So everyone, so glad that you joined us again today for EdTech Speaks. As you know, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, Audible, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we hope that you join us again for our next interview. Until then, keep learning.
Thank you for listening to EdTech Speaks with EdTech strategist Cher Downing. To learn more about the services Downing EdTech and its staff can provide you, find us at www.downingedtech.com. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to share it. We'd also like to hear from you regarding any suggestions for topics or guests. and the value you received from our show. Check back for new podcasts with featured guests at www.downingedtech.com/podcast.